ladies and gentlemen. My name is Morgan Peckham. I'm the editor-in-chief of City and State newspaper. We are the only statewide newspaper that covers exclusively New York State politics. On behalf of City and State and the Partnership for Public Good, the YWCA of Western New York, I'd like to welcome all of you this evening. I'd like to welcome the two participants in our next debate, Erie County Legislator Betty Jean Grant and State Senator Timothy Kennedy. So please, I should know that Legislator Grant is the chair of the Erie County Legislature. I didn't want to shortchange you. And thank you so much to the Buffalo and Erie County Historical Society for hosting this evening. So let's jumping right into it. Senator Kennedy, you ran against a long-time incumbent on a platform of reform. What have you done in your first term in Albany to bring about the reform that you aim to bring?
Thank you very much, Morgan. First of all, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. May I offer you a chance to give your introductory remarks?
I'm going to be a gentleman and allow ladies to go first.
Well, I'll take it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Betty Jean Grant, and I'm chair of the Erie County Legislature in addition to being a second district legislator. As you know, we had a districting with the county last year, so the district changed from the 7th to the 2nd. I'm proud to say, as a second district legislator, I've brought many things to the county. And also, I've worked with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans. And based on that, this past January, they chose to elect me, vote for me to be the chair of the legislature. And I think that it's an honor. It shows that I'm willing to work with all across Erie County, whether it's suburban areas or rural areas, or even the city of Buffalo, the city of Albany, and the township of Albany. I'm proud of that. I'm also proud that I have a working relationship with the county executive. As you know, the prior county executive was a person, an individual who did not, in my estimate, care about people, did not care about initiative, did not care about those services that make Erie County what it is today. If you look at what we lost in the last 2 years, we lost the daycare subsidy for working moms, we lost 2 health clinics, we outsourced WIC to another county instead of Erie County taking care of it. We lost prime-time funding for our youth that kept them out of harm's way. This was done under prior administration, which my opponent helped to install into power. So I'm proud of my record. I'm proud of being a city council member. I was the council member of the University District for 2 terms, 1999 to 2003. Followed that with a school board election where I served for 2 terms. Then elected to the county legislature in 2007 to represent an area in the city that had a lot of needs. With the unemployment rate of 36% among African-American youth, with the high school dropout rates at 25% of graduating on time, I'm glad to be a part of county government. However, with the needs of the state and when opportunity arose to seek higher office, I threw my hat into the ring because I felt that you needed a choice. You need a choice of a true blue, loyal Democrat. One who does not waffle, one who does not waver, one who does not walk away from a vote, and certainly one who does not go across the aisle to empower a party that is anti-people and anti-service. So I stand firm on record of being a true blue, loyal Democrat. If you're a Democrat, you work with Democrats. You act like a Democrat. You vote with Democrats. You don't give that power to a party and to an individual who's going to take the service away. This county lost greatly under the term of County Executive Chris Collins. And Mr. Skinny is a Chris Collins Democrat. He's a Chris Collins Democrat because he's lined with 2 other Democrats to give the power of a Democratic elected majority over to a Republican county administration that had no need for the services that I just named. So I'm proud to be a loyal, true blue Democrat. And when an opportunity arose where we had one person running for state senate in an area that needs all these services and who has shown by his past action that he didn't care about these services either, I threw my hat in the ring.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me start by thanking City and State for putting on this forum, as well as the YWCA YWCA and the Partnership for the Public Good. As you had mentioned, Morgan, the last 19 months I've been in the New York State Senate. 2 years ago, just to go back a couple of years, New York State was considered the most dysfunctional state government in the entire nation. The budget was 125 days late, and the taxes were out of control. The business environment, we were losing jobs by the tens of thousands and our population with it. I humbly submit to you that over the course of the last 19 months, we have made one of the most dysfunctional state governments in the entire nation functional again. We're working very closely with Governor Cuomo to put Western New York back on the map, to make sure Western New York is no longer ignored by downstate interests and Albany bureaucracy. We're working to create jobs in this community, stand up for families and children, to protect families and children, and to make sure that Western New York gets its fair share, and we have our voices heard in Albany. Over the course of the last 19 months and 21 days, but who's counting? We have worked very hard to make sure that we create jobs in this community. UB 2020 was a great success. The previous legislators, my predecessor, failed to enact. We drove UB 2020 forward, helping to create thousands of jobs in this community, right in the heart of the city of Buffalo. A $400 million investment from the University of Buffalo in the downtown corridor. You go up to the waterfront, hundreds of millions of dollars being invested in our waterfront. This is an incredibly optimistic time to be a Buffalonian and a Western New Yorker. I'm very proud of my record in the New York State Senate over the course of the last 19 months. And while my opponent calls me a Chris Collins Democrat, I will submit to you that I'm more of a Kathy Hochul Democrat. And I can tell you that I have been true to democratic values, working men and women in Western New York and in New York State. And I'm very proud of my record of standing up and fighting for working families across New York State, and my record of creating jobs, cutting taxes to the lowest rate in 58 years in New York State to the middle class, fighting to increase the minimum wage, and making sure that Western New York, again, receives its fair share from all of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Legislator Brett, would you agree with Senator Kennedy that there has been a real decline in dysfunction in Albany? Do you think that we're in a better place in the state capitol now?
I could be honored. I think the chaos in Albany is not like chaos in Erie County government 2 years ago. Chaos in Albany was caused by two turncoat Democrats, Senator Maserati and Senator Spider, who aligned with Republicans to get the control of the Democratic majority to Republicans. That created chaos. Like Senator Kennedy escaped the chaos going to Albany because that Democratic chaos happened a year before he came. He instituted that chaos in the county government and said he's proud to be a state senator. I'd like to ask him, are you proud of having you read as a county legislator?
That's interesting because that was going to be one of my questions. No, I mean, it's kind of unique. Both of you served contemporaneously in the Erie County Legislature. And I'd like to have you evaluate each other's performance in the Erie County Legislature having worked together. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Chairman. I'm very proud of the work that I did in the Erie County Legislature. The folks in the district that I represent came first and foremost in every decision that I made. As the folks that I represent in the New York State Senate today come first and foremost. If we want to go back years ago, I was very proud to be supportive of a Democratic chairwoman, the first African American chairwoman of the Erie County Legislature in Erie County history. I was proud of working in a bipartisan fashion to create results for Western New York. I was also proud to make sure we're standing up for working values, working men and women across Western New York. That's the Erie County Legislature. That's let's want to go in, I want to get into the gutter politics of the Erie County Legislature. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about New York State government. Let's talk about the progress that we've made in a very short time. 2 on-time budgets. 2 on-time budgets. For the first time since 1983, we had the earliest budget since 1983. These are proud accomplishments. We're working with a governor who's committed $1 billion to create jobs in Western New York. I'm working very closely with the governor. We speak regularly on the issues that are important to creating jobs and an environment for businesses to sustain themselves and grow jobs in the Western New York economy that past administrations unfortunately have shunned. And past legislatures, past senators, including predecessors of mine, have shunned. Unfortunately, I can tell you that I will not get into the gutter politics of the past. What I will get into is the bright future that we have in Western New York under this administration, working closely with us as a New York State Senate, as a Western New York delegation, in, mind you, a bipartisan fashion.
Thank you, Senator. And if I could just urge everybody to silence their cell phones and for the candidates to watch our timekeeper so I don't have to be rude and cut you off. Senator Grant, Legislator Grant, what do... yes, I would like you to address it, and I would also like you to evaluate Senator Penny's performance in the Erie County Legislature.
I'll say prior to the last year he served, his record was probably a B plus and A. The last year he served, his record should be no less than, no more than enough. Because what he did was great poverty. He talks about the first African-American chairwoman. He failed to recognize the fact that African-American chairwoman right now lost an election. Because the policy that he helped put in place with this African-American chair, and I don't care whether she's African-American or not, she was a very terrible chairwoman, and what she and Chris Collins helped to do really devastated the African-American community for the last 2 years. When you have a chairperson of a legislature who sat idly by when Chris Collins closed the daycare, when he cut the daycare subsidy for working moms. We have an African-American chairwoman who stood idly by when he closed 2 clinics that now serve African-American, but everybody in Erie County, including South Buffalo that you serve as a county legislator. When he put in place prime time, when he cut $4 million from the library, when he cut agriculture in the African-American community, and the African-American chairwoman stood by, I'm not proud of the African-American chairwoman, neither should you, and neither should you be proud of the record that you left behind when you escaped Albany. Christine Bobay and you, environmental men, were 3 renegade Chris Collins Democrats who allowed Republicans. If you break it, you got to pay for it. They paid for it. They paid for that move by losing the election. You didn't pay for that because you escaped Albany. You prior to Albany, you talk about you represent your constituents well these past 2 years, your district has changed. Your district now includes part of the east side that you haven't represented before. And east side is where those health clinics were cut, where the daycare subsidy was not put in place, where the subsidy, where the WIC program was outsourced. So you're proud of your record, but you want to represent people who you didn't care about 2 years ago when you were a county legislator. If you care about them, you would not allow Chris Collins, environmental wins, and Christine Bobay, you would not allow them, there were 6 Republicans, to give control of a Democratic-controlled legislator over to Chris Collins. So Chris Collins' record is your record. Let's send it to Kennedy.
Senator,
I'd like to respond that that is an absolute inaccurate statement about my position as it pertained to funding. I always fought to make sure when I was in the county legislature that we kept the clinics open. I always fought for WIC. I always fought for prime time funding. And I fought to get Mark Poloncarz elected as a Democrat over Chris Collins. Mark Poloncarz is here in the audience today. Go ask him. On top of that, I'm fighting to make sure that we re-elect Captain Hochul to the United States Congress. Let's talk about the New York State Senate. Let's talk about progress in Western New York. This is an incredibly optimistic time. I'm a father of 3 beautiful young children. I have a 7-year-old son with my wife, a 3-year-old daughter who's going on 33, who's running the house. And we have a 1-year-old son as well. And they're the future of this community. And I am heavily invested personally in the future of this community, as all of you are, as families, as working men and women, as Western New Yorkers, as Buffalonians. We have a proud history. We have a bright future. And the politics of division aren't going to do us any good. But the unification of this community and moving it forward and fighting to make sure that Western New York is heard in Albany by those folks in the highest levels of government, starting with the governor's office, have proven to already benefit this community. Again, Governor Cuomo is working very closely with us. His record of reform falls in line with our record of reform. I've worked with Governor Cuomo on a first-hand basis to make sure Western New York creates an environment where jobs can be created. Where my kids, when they're old enough to go to work in Western New York. They don't have to leave like the tens of thousands of people my generation out of the region, out of the state to go get a job. No, I'm lucky enough. I'm one of the lucky ones that was able to stay in Western New York. I got my master's degree from Bugle College. I'm an occupational therapist. I worked in the private sector for 11 years. I have fought to make sure that Western New York's voice is heard in Albany, that we are creating jobs. It's my #1 priority, that we're protecting families, that we're standing up to put child abusers in jail, that we're standing up to make sure that individuals that are texting and driving are held to a primary offense, that we're saving lives. These are reforms that we've enacted, public safety reforms that we've enacted,
Thank you, Senator.
among other things. Thank you.
I want to say that Senator Kennedy brought up Kaizen bipolar press. And I know you work on Kaizen bipolar press campaign, that's the good idea. But also, when Senator Kennedy had escaped to Albany, county controller bipolar press still in Erie County, still fighting a county executive who was in power, who was given power by 3 renegade Democrats and 6 Republicans. And when the African American chairwoman, who Senator Kennedy talked about, refused to let the county controller speak because she had the county executive, Chris Collins, and 6 Republicans, and 2 renegade Democrats who replaced Mr. Kennedy with Mr. Whalen, but he still voted the same way. When he had that control, county controller Colacott was disrespected. It was not allowed to do his job, and they cut over half his staff from the budget because Collins didn't like the independent controller who's going to tell us the truth. So you can take the claim for Ms. Colacott's victory, asking and asking most of you who work with me in this audience, but you also got to take the credit and the blame for empowering a county executive who made life difficult for that county controller. And you can ask county controller Colacott for that.
Senator.
Going to your state record, you talked to state record, but I recall reading about 4 votes that you didn't vote on. One was spent Casino Gaming, was a no-show for that, you didn't vote. The DNA database, you didn't vote for that. You also didn't vote for Tier 6, that's going to decrease the retirees. You didn't vote for that as well.
Yes, Senator, your response.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I'm proud that my opponent has now acknowledged that I'm a Mark Poloncarz Democrat and a Kathy Hogan Democrat.
And a Chris Collins Democrat.
I'm proud. I can tell you this. Going back in the past and getting into the gutter politics of the Erie County Legislature, it's going to do nothing to create jobs in this region. It's going to do nothing to protect families in this region. It's going to do nothing to help this community. And my opponent continues to talk about the past. I am here to talk about the future. I'm here to talk about creating jobs in this community. I'm here to talk about protecting families in this community and making sure that Western New York's voice is heard in Albany, and I'm proud of my record in all of those things. I'm also proud of the fact that we made sure that we held those folks accountable down in Albany, that we made sure that we enacted a fair and equitable tax code that ensured that Wall Street millionaires and billionaires pay their fair share in taxes in New York State. You know what we were able to do with that funding? We were able to take that funding that when Wall Street millionaires and billionaires pay take their fair share and put it directly into education. Know what's going to happen with that? We're going to educate our youth appropriately. Know what's going to happen then? We're going to be able to keep our youth in this community. They're going to be able to get jobs in this community, and they're going to get off the streets in this community. And we're going to decrease crime in this community. We are focused on positive results in Albany. We're focused on making positive changes. I'll tell you why the Democratic Conference walked out. The Democratic Conference, unified, in a unified fashion, walked out of the dysfunctional Republican ways of the New York State Senate in Albany. We walked out in protest to the gerrymandered districts when they stifled debate. The Republicans stifled debate on the all-important decade-long redistricting process, the once-a-decade redistricting process. The Democratic Conference walked out because the Republicans refused to allow us to debate on an issue where they reconfigured districts, including the 63rd district, where they increased the size and cost of government, where they disenfranchised communities of color all across New York State, no greater than here in Western New York. And I'll tell you what, we're very proud of sending a message to folks in Western New York and across the state that the Republican Senate, in the dark of night, at 2 in the morning, put forward a dysfunctional gerrymandered plan that cut communities in half, again disenfranchised minority communities, and added the size and cost of government. And while we were out in protest, they ramrodded these other votes through, including Tier 6, that caused an incredible disparity between upstate and downstate, that exempted New York City police and fire, that put their lives on the line every single day. But it didn't exempt Buffalonians. The same Buffalonians that put their lives on the line every single day, protecting our lives, the police and fire. Once again, another upstate-downstate divide. It was faulty legislation, and we were against it. And the Republicans ramrodded that through in the dark of night.
And Senator Kennedy walked out of that. I want to say something. St. Paul verb means you go back and fetch what's in the past to know the future. And I keep going back to the past because the past is indication of what you do in the future. If you allow the Republican in the past, you have what you do in the future. It hasn't been done. It was done 4 years ago in Albany. If you vote, and now you say Republican likes a dirty word, but 2 years ago they were not a dirty word because you allowed them to give power to them and take it from a Democratic elected a majority of the legislature. You talk about redistricting. You, Christine Bowley, Barbara Lynn, and you, the renegade Democrat, allowed the Republican to put a plan in place that will be harmful for Erie County. It would have had me in a district that I could not have won for the next election. So you talk about a Republican, but you allowed them to pass, and you were author of a local law that reduced the legislation to 11 from 15. And that reduction, that law put environmental in a district that could not have won going forward. Environmental solution has been resolved by the people. They saw her alignment with Republican, they saw disloyalty, and they voted her out. Christine Bowley has been rewarded or punished by the voters because they saw the unholy coalition. But you, Senator Kennedy, have not paid for that. You put in place, you were the architect of what happened after you left for 2 years. You were the architect, you have to wear it. So what you do in the past will come back. And they said, good dark into the light. This is your light, Mr. Kennedy.
We continue to talk about the past, the Erie County legislature. Let's talk about the New York State Senate. Let's talk about the past 19 months. Let's talk about the progress that's been happening in New York State. The on-time budgets, balancing the budget, getting rid of a $10 billion deficit last year, and a $2 billion budget deficit this year. A fair and equitable tax code that cut taxes to the lowest level for middle class in 58 years. $1 billion commitment to Buffalo and Western New York. jobs and investment that's happening before our very eyes. I'd like my opponent to talk about her plan for the future for Western New York, because I haven't heard any plan for the future. I've only heard about the negative gutter politics of the past.
Legislator Grant,
I
your
will talk
plan for the
about,
future.
I will talk about the future, but I want to say too. One of the votes to walk out was the extended Senate for gaming. Extended gaming in New York State. Senator Kennedy, how much money did you get from Senator Nation last year, year before last, and this year? And why would you walk out and vote? Either you vote yes or you vote no. You vote for a state to expand Senator gaming, or you vote no. You don't walk out because you got money from the senator and you want to please the governor. You can't have it both ways. I guarantee you, when I'm in the Senate next year, I'm going to vote yes and no. I have voted 4 years as a common council member. I've never walked away from a vote. I voted 3 years as a school board member, never walked away. And my 5th term as a county legislator, I never walked away from a vote. So the future is, you put me in Albany, I'm going to vote. I'm not going to take money from the senator and run away when it's time for a vote. Because there's been some violation of contract. You got to stand one way or another. You can't stand in the middle. Senator Kennedy, people send you Albany to vote, yes or no. Not to use a bathroom when the vote's being taken. As for the future, UB 2020 is a good idea. UB 2020 is good, and I support it 100%. But I also support National Grid 398. There's National Grid, you owe $390 of your electricity you can't pay. I support people having money to pay their expenses. UB 2020 is good. How much is going to filter out to jobs? How many jobs are going to be created? Is it for big developer? Is it for feel good? Is it going to be reducing tuition for our children who go to college? UB 2020 is good. I support that. I support the $1 billion coming in. But what I saw for a district that I will be representing, when it really impacted the constituent, I saw $125 for sidewalk repair. I didn't see the money that's going to create jobs, going to have mom and pop getting these grants, these $10,000 grants, where they can expand their business. Maybe they can hire 2 or 3 kids for the summer. I didn't see any crime prevention that will keep our streets safe. I didn't see the money that would help our seniors to pay their prescription bills. I didn't see that.
Thank you, Legislator.
Morgan, it's been over a half an hour. That's actually the first time that I've heard constructive progress. And Chairwoman, you mentioned that support of UB 2020.
Absolutely.
UB 2020 wouldn't have happened if we didn't drive that initiative forward and I didn't take control of the issue in the New York State Senate with the Democratic conference and help to drive the issue forward through the Democratic-controlled New York State Assembly. We're going to create thousands of jobs. I'm thrilled that you're supportive of UB 2020. My predecessor failed to get UB 2020 done. We got it done. It's going to create thousands of jobs, hundreds of millions of dollars in investment in the heart of the city of Buffalo. We're putting people to work. We're enhancing educational opportunities for folks all over Western Europe. We're making the University of Buffalo the epicenter for education in the entire Northeast United States. And I'm very proud of my work, and I'm thrilled that you endorsed that effort regarding UB 2020. I can tell you this, though, we're just getting started. We got a lot of work to do, and we're just getting started. The fact of the matter is, there's a gap that exists. And I have a plan in place, just like we had a plan in place to get UB 2020 done, I have a plan in place to create jobs in this community. Starting with the $1 billion commitment from the governor, but it goes beyond that. It goes to creating an environment where individuals that are unemployed can go and get the training that is necessary to fill the existing job opportunities that are out there right now. Right now, there's a gap. There's 1,000 jobs that was mentioned recently in published reports, 1,000 jobs in Western New York community that are unfilled because there are unemployed individuals that don't have the training that is necessary. The Center for Workforce Achievement that's been endorsed by Ford Motor Company, an internationally recognized company with headquarters right here in Western New York, has endorsed this piece of legislation that I put forward. So has Erie Community College and the board of directors and the educators over there that believe that my job creation strategy is a strategy that works. On top of that, we're focused on making sure that we're holding corporations accountable, and we're preventing them from outsourcing jobs overseas. 10,000 jobs have left New York State in the past, and we are making sure that we're holding the call center jobs. We're making sure that we are going to prevent call center jobs from being outsourced. And we're going to incentivize businesses to bring those New York jobs back to Western New York and put Western New Yorkers back to work.
Legislator Grant, your response.
And I agree 100%. I support that. I think that the workforce initiative you put in place is very good.
Thank you.
When you have an unemployment rate among inner city youth of 36%, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I also see organizations such as Outsourced Resource Center that has been struggling for years to get funding from the city, from the county, from the state. And I'm glad to see that you're there, so that when I call them tomorrow, they'll say that Senator Kennedy come by and we're part of that initiative that you just named. I also want to say too that UB 2020 is good, but also raise tuition for our students in school. That's one thing I think that the state senate and Assembly did not, they dropped the ball on. Because number one, to increase tuition at a time when most of them don't have jobs and family are doing with less, I think it's very important that I get a tuition reduction in the UB 2020. So I'm happy with you in UB 2020. I know that you're working with Rep. Chapman and others to make sure that it happens. But also, you can't take the claim for all that. Senator Saunders was the chief mover of UB 2020. You got to get credit for that.
Senator Kennedy, I was hoping that you could clarify what your position. Do you support or oppose a constitutional amendment to expand legalized gambling in your state?
Well, I can tell you this, that while I am supportive of an extension of casino gambling on a limited basis, I believe that the compact that's in place from 2002 needs to be honored. And New York State needs to uphold its commitments and promises that they've made in the past. And that includes upholding the compact, which, by the way, has generated hundreds of millions of dollars in investment in Western New York. Thousands of jobs have been created because of this compact. And we need to make sure that whatever decisions are made moving forward regarding casino gaming, that the jobs and opportunities specifically in Western New York that have been created are protected and, quite frankly, are enhanced. So in that regard, I am on a limited basis, yes.
Legislator Grant, do you support or oppose a constitutional
Well, I
amendment?
said this one vote that the Senator had used to have for a month. This one vote he walked out of. And then wanted to know who support the Hispanic casino gaming.
All 20,
He was not
the
there for
entire
a
Democratic
vote.
conference had used the bathroom at the
Yeah.
same time.
Well, yeah.
Traffic jam.
Absolutely, and he did it on purpose, and that's not what we send you and the other ones all to do. I think that there's enough gaming in Erie County, I think casino gaming. I think the compact, I was a councilman when the compact was instituted. I looked, I read it, it's thick, but I read it. When we had those video lottery terminal, the VLTs, that was a violation contract. Because they say if you put a slot into a machine, the Native American do the slot machine, the state cannot. But our trap betting has you don't put the coin in, the coin doesn't come out. But it's the same thing. So that compact has been in violation. The Senate of America has every right to be upset, but they have no right to deny our Niagara Falls and Buffalo and other counties the money that's we're entitled to. Because the problem is in Albany, the problem now with these different municipalities, they are making sure that they keep it in the bargain. The problem is downstate in Albany, where the government could advance money to the different cities and towns and not have Niagara Falls and City of Buffalo suffer, being owed, I think, $8 million for Buffalo and $32 million in Niagara Falls. There is a way to remember that. I think that casino gaming is enough. There's enough gambling in Buffalo. Let the Native Americans do what they do well. Let them do their economic development. I don't think we need another casino here. We don't need casino gaming expanded. And when I go to Albany, I'm going to go no to expansion casino gaming. I'm not going to use the bathroom at the BOS side. I'm going to get money to the city. I would vote period, so.
Well, moving to another contentious issue. Legislator Bragg, what is your position on the expansion of the Peace Bridge Plaza?
I think that there are studies been done that the emission of those trucks are damaging the community and the environment and the people who live there. I know there's studies that was done by a doctor about the increased level of asthma. I think that has to be taken into consideration. I think anything going to compromise the health and welfare of people that come before infrastructure, I think needs to be addressed. Because that's not a district, legislative district, I have not fully read what was proposed. But I know that Mayor Brown, Governor Cuomo, was at odds at once, because Mayor Brown was out for the health of his citizens and residents of the area. So I'm not sure that that's been resolved or not. But anything that's going to compromise the health and safety well-being of our community, anything that's going to displace, dislocated people who've been there for years, I'm not in favor of. I think there's nothing can be done, they need to be located. But certainly not to disrupt and have people's lives threatened, or they have to sell their homes and their safety be compromised.
And Senator, what is your position on the expansion of the Peace Bridge Plaza?
I believe we need to put the community first, number one. And the fact of the matter is, the emissions in the past have caused an increase in asthma rates on the lower west side. At the same time, what we're doing right now is making sure that the Department of Environmental Conservation is putting in air monitoring devices and making sure that they are keeping the idling trucks from breaking the law. And on top of that, with the federal guidelines that were recently put in place, the emissions from these diesel engines have been decreased by about 95%. So we need to keep in mind the fact that by enhancing the ease to which individuals from Southern Ontario and folks coming back into the United States can get back in by decreasing idling engines, both diesel engines from the trucks as well as cars that are coming over the border, and prevent these 2-hour waits at the border, will not only help to alleviate the health concerns on the Lower West Side, but will enhance the economy by making sure that those folks that would sit in these idling engines for 2 hours can come spend their money in Western New York. The Canadian dollar is on par with the United States dollar at this point in time. Canadians are coming over in record numbers. And I'm sure, Chairwoman, you would attest to the fact that they're spending their money in record numbers, and it's helping with the local municipal bottom line, especially in Erie County. So the fact of the matter is we need to enhance the Bridge Plaza by making it easier for individuals to come over the border.
One question that was of particular interest to the YWCA of Western New York was about the governor's cutbacks on after-school programs for at-risk children. And what would you do to help at-risk children, make sure that they don't fall into crime?
What I would do is what we did in county this year through the generosity and the really empathetic concern of county St. Paul parents. We was able to amend the anti-people, anti-community Chris Collins budget December last year. We was able to put in place $600,000 for prime time. Prime time programs fund after-school programs, keep the community center open longer and during the summertime. With the coalition that Mr. Kennedy put in place, prime time was cut from the county for 2 years. And our children had no place to go last year and the year before because of policy put in place by the Republican and Renegades Democrat. Ms. Wilson put the money in, the state eliminated prime time. So I asked Mr. Kennedy from now to December to make sure that we have money for prime time and other initiatives. And in January, when I'm elected, I will ensure that Erie County and Western New York gets its fair share.
Senator?
First of all, I want to go back and tell the gutter politics of Erie County. I don't think it's in the best interest of the people of Western New York. The fact of the matter is, nobody fought harder than I in the Erie County Legislature years ago to increase primetime funding. The fact is that we have fought successfully to increase funding for public education in New York State by ensuring that Wall Street millionaires and billionaires pay their fair share. And we increased the city of Buffalo budget in particular by $33 million. That's what we need. We need to make sure that after-school programs are open and viable to these kids, keeping kids off the street. We've done that successfully here in Buffalo and Western New York by increasing the bottom line for education, not only in Buffalo and Western New York, but all across New York State.
We only have time for one last question. I feel like it kind of sums up a lot of the debate this evening. I heard it described to me that this race was indicative of a fight for the soul of the Democratic Party in Erie County. And I wanted to know, I wanted to ask you what you would do to bring about unity in a party that has been ununified, and who you believe should lead the party moving forward. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you very much. We will address those in due time. Following the Democratic primary, the Democratic committee is going to get together. There are continue to be votes throughout Erie County for committee seats and whatnot that are going to help to elect the next chair of the Democratic Party here in Erie County. It's vitally important that we continue to do everything we can to put our differences aside and to come together as Democrats and to come together in a unified voice to fight for working men and women here in Buffalo and all of Western New York. And I look forward to those conversations. And there's several candidates that are
Legislator Grant, what do you think that can be done to bring kind of an end to this disunity, and who do you think should lead the party moving forward?
I think that prior to 2005, the party was unified. It was the election of a Buffalo mayor, and the relationship between Mayor Brown and Ms. Linehan, who chairs the party. There's different opinion, different personality, and that evolved into maybe some kind of chaos and disunity. But as not only my zone chairwoman, I'm also vice chair of the Democratic Party. So I get to see intimately what is happening, what is discussed. And I think the biggest thing is that Mayor Brown has a relationship with Governor Cuomo, and due to that, when Mayor Brown problems or argues with Ms. Linehan, that reached a Albany level. So here we have a Democratic chairperson who has done a good job, who's done a fantastic job electing the first Democratic county executive in history of Erie County, elected Kathy Hochul to a district that she was outnumbered 5-1 by Republicans, who have to get legislator elected, to get a majority of the legislator. I think that has been a fantastic Democratic chair. He wanted to resign last year. I and others asked him to make a mistake because we didn't think that Governor Cuomo should be directing what's happening in West New York. We think that Erie County should take care of Erie County. The politics of Erie County has to resolve Erie County. And I think Ms. Linehan is only moving aside, not because he wants to, not because we want him to, but because he wants to bring unity. And the only way some people see unity is in peace God. And it's very unfortunate. But the party has not been disunited only since 2005. It's been disunited. And I think moving forward, Mr. Bolger has submitted that he would recommend 4 names. And that is the prerogative to do so. So right now, one of the 4 names is in contention will be our next Democratic chairperson. Of course, there's an election with committee people in October. They decide themselves. But hoping that when we decide, that we decide for the best interest of Erie County, not in the best interest of a governor who lives 100 miles away, and politics doesn't even influence or affect Erie County. So I think Erie County Democrats should choose the next Democratic chairperson of the party.
Senator, do you think that the governor meddled in Erie County politics?
Here's what I think.
Yes, he did.
Here's what I think. I think that the governor has made a tremendous commitment to Western New York, $1 billion commitment, a commitment to creating jobs, helping our economy, to help to protect families, whether it's signing gas-stop legislation that will prevent individuals from being addicted to painkillers and whatnot and dying, that has unfortunately become an epidemic across New York State. All these important pieces of legislation that the governor has led us on. He is a Democrat. He is the head of our party in New York State, and he does have influence on what happens here in Western New York, and we need to work with him. And I look forward to continuing to stand with the governor on issues that are important to Western New York and making sure that we continue to keep Western New York on the right track and continue to show progress in Western New York, the city of Buffalo, and all across New York State.
We're going to move to closing statements. You can use your closing statements part of it if you like. Legislator, please.
I am looking forward to the governor as well. I think he's been a fantastic governor. I think he's done a lot of things that this community needs. I think he has taken that initiative of saying, here's the money. You can choose to use it wisely, we can let go to the wayside. It is up to us to make sure we do that. I think Governor Coleman has done a fantastic job, not only for New York State, but for upstate. However, I think that Erie County politics should be decided by Erie County zone and community people, not from outside Albany, telling them who our next chairperson will be. Because number one, in a democratic society, we are one, we choose what our leaders are. So I stand firm with the governor when I'm elected in January. I work close with him, I'm a loyal Democrat. He wouldn't have to think, he wouldn't have to question the fact of whether I'm going to next week go in line with Republicans. He will guarantee, when I work with him, and I'm elected, I will stand truly firm as a Democratic senator, because that's what you elected for. You didn't elect me to change my affiliation because of whatever reason. You elected me to go to Albany and represent you as a Democrat. And that's what I would do, working with a Democratic governor and a Democratic assembly.
Senator, your closing statement.
First of all, thank you very much again to City and State, the YWCA, to the Partnership for Public Good, to our client, Carol Lindgren. Thank you very much for your participation. I'm about making sure that Western New York continues to have a voice in Albany that we have lost in the past. Prior to my election 19 months ago, Western New York, in many ways, had been ignored by Albany. Downstate interest drove the agenda in New York State. Western New York was unfortunately always playing second fiddle. We went to Albany to change things. We championed job creation in this community with UB 2020. We championed public safety initiatives like making texting and driving a primary offense in New York State. We championed initiatives like making sure that Western New York gets its fair share of transportation dollars. It's putting thousands of people to work. This past year, we got more funding for Region 5 in Western New York than we've gotten in the last 11 years. It's because I and others in this Western New York delegation stood up and made sure Western New York's voice was heard in Albany. The same voice that was stifled in the past. Because people didn't have the guts to stand up for us as Western New Yorkers. As a father of 3 young children, a proud husband, proud Buffalonian, proud Western New Yorker, proud New York State resident, and a proud senator representing this district, I vow to you that no one will work harder than I to continue to make positive change in this community that we've already begun to make in Albany, making sure Western New York voice is heard, making sure that the divisive gutter politics of the past that unfortunately my opponent wants to get back into is the past. And we talk about the bright future that we have as Western New Yorkers and Buffalonians, the optimistic future of job creation and initiatives that are going to keep our youth here in Western New York to continue to make Western New York the greatest community and the greatest state and the greatest country in the world. Thank you for the incredible opportunity you have given me to be your New York State Senator. I ask you for your vote and your continued confidence in me on September 13th in this Democratic primary. And I look forward to continuing to represent the people of Western New York in New York State, in the New York State Senate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. And Legislator Grant, you used your summation to talk about your relationship with Governor Cuomo, but if you'll just, I'd like to offer you 30 seconds to just sum up your own.
Thank you. Senator Kennedy said dirty politics, but he never said it was not true. And you have to know the truth, because in order to have confidence, you have to know the person elected, the person that will be true to his promise to you and to his party. I want to say to you that if you elect me, I will continue to work as hard for you as I worked as a council member, a legislator, and a school board member, and as chair of the legislature, because you have to really make firm decisions. You have to stand by your decision. And you also have to bring it to the people. I would never make a decision that of significant importance without having community meetings. I hold meetings every month in Maryland, where people call me Miss Community Meeting, because to hold those meetings. From you, and for listening to you on the radio, listen to you when you go to forums, I find out what are the needs of this community. And that's why I take to Albany. I'm not going to Albany to bring things back to you. I'm going to Albany to take things from me from this community.
Thank you, Legislator.